Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Scott Zagurski, and I'm the Senior Director of Marketing here at Assurity. And I'm happy to have everybody jump online today. We're going to go over something that's kind of near and dear to my heart, selling critical illness insurance in the GoFundMe era. And you'll get a little bit more of a flavor of that here to come. I'm joined with my colleague, Ryan Hansen, today, who is our Strategic Accounts Manager. At Assurity, critical illness is a product that for us is one of our core products when we're looking at supplemental health. And we have about 2 months now until open enrollment season. And we know that during open enrollment season, products like critical illness insurance are really sought after, whether it's in the workplace or people that are curious in the workplace looking for a better deal and looking to go out to an independent agent and find the best deal. We know the timing is right for these types of products to be thought about and to be sold by you. And so we wanted to present a little bit different flavor for you around the need today. Also, we're really excited that we're launching and have been launching a new product in the critical illness space. And Ryan's going to get into that later on in the presentation. So today's agenda, we'll kind of go over the GoFundMe aspect. And for those of you who aren't familiar, we'll get a little bit more familiar with that website and kind of why that's relevant in this discussion. We'll also look at some new data on the needs of this middle market. Ryan will get into some key features that make our new product easier to sell. You know, we've been taking feedback on the critical illness space and the product space here for the last 2 or 3 years. We've had some great people who we've been partnering with out in the field, selling this product for us and teaching us what adjustments really would make this product better. And Ryan will get into that today. And then we'll close. I'll take it back over and we'll talk about some tools that maybe will help you close a deal coming up. So without further ado, we'll get into it. If there are any questions, we've got questions out there in the webinar. Feel free to answer those. We'll kind of reserve, to the end of the presentation, answering those questions for you. We know we got you on silent, but don't be shy in throwing some questions out there, and we'll circle back and get those at the very end. So the GoFundMe era. So why is that a thing? Well, GoFundMe.com is a crowdfunding website that shouldn't just, it's typically for charitable actions or events. And what we're seeing more and more is just the growing need for people to reach out through sites like GoFundMe and others because of the fact that high deductible healthcare is continually becoming the norm for consumers. And it's leaving a larger and larger gap for those consumers when illness really strikes. And we talk critical illness, right? We're talking, heart attack, stroke, cancer, Alzheimer's. There are other conditions, if they're doing an organ transplant for somebody that they love, that these costs just keep rising, and the high deductible healthcare plans ultimately are extending these gaps each and every year. We were talking the other day as we were putting this webinar together, and Assurity is a great company with great benefits. There's a lot of great companies with great benefits out there, but we were talking, when's the last time you went to a new company and like, wow, my benefits really got better? Or this open enrollment season, wow, I really expect our health coverage to improve this year. You just don't go into the year or enrollment season typically thinking that or having that top of mind. Not to get political at all, but tonight, Thursday night, there'll be a debate and there'll be a certain party that'll be talking a lot about healthcare and what they're going to do and why the companies or the country's having some problems regarding that. And so whether it's open enrollment, the political season, whatever else, consumers, this is top of mind coming into the next 2 months. And as an agent, being out, listening to people about their concerns, knowing how to address them, and ultimately where you can help fill some of those gaps, is really going to be important. So when we look at GoFundMe, these stats were really, kind of eyebrow raising to me, that just this year alone, there has been 250,000 medical fundraising campaigns this year. So when we look at that, right, people are having something happen to them. They're in the hospital being treated for, hospitalized, inpatient or longer. This treatment in that high deductible healthcare, which really comes down to what their maximum out-of-pocket costs are to them, right? If you're somebody who's on a family plan, it's a government mandate that the high end of a healthcare plan, for 2019 is $15,800 you'd have to come up with as far as that maximum out of pocket. And if you think of your common consumer, right, they may have a health savings account, which, as a financial advisor agent, you would probably tell them to fund first. And if they're doing what they think they can, right, it might be $100 or $200 a month that they're able to put in there in case they have a rainy day or for their doctor's office copays, right? Mm-hmm. But even if you do that and, you're at $100 a month and your company's throwing another $1,000 in there, and matching, which some companies will do that on the HSA side, you're still going to be $10,000, $12,000 short just on that maximum out of pocket if something would happen to you. And when we talk about these somethings happening to you, that's where cancer, heart attack, and stroke can really be scary. One of the classic overcoming objections things, right, and looking at those types of conditions ends up being, okay, well, that's not going to happen to me, cancer, heart attack, or stroke. And, to overcome that objection, a lot of agents, will say, well, do you know somebody who's had one of these conditions? And then the follow-up questions, right, well, did they expect that to happen? Because nobody truly expects these things typically to happen, right? That you're going to have cancer, you're going to have a sudden heart attack or stroke. But when that does happen and you can't meet those obligations and your disability income hasn't kicked in and you're out of work and you have a lot of other bills to consider outside of the maximum out of pocket, that's where these GoFundMe campaigns really come in. And so 250,000 people are asking basically their family and friends and strangers to pay for their coverage because they don't have enough. And even though $650 million were raised this year through GoFundMe for these types of conditions, really only 1 in 10 people met their medical fundraising goals. And we've been diving into these numbers here at Assurity a bit further. The average ask, on GoFundMe for somebody diagnosed with cancer is $50,000. And that's taken from a sample of, tens of thousands that we've looked at, through the GoFundMe campaigns that were raised this year. And of that 50,000, the average amount that they receive is 25,000. Now, those are averages, right? You're going to get some people that will reach their full goal and some people will receive absolutely nothing. And so when you're relying on crowdfunding as a source, you're really looking at who's telling the best story. When those things pop up in my social media feed, they're popping up more and more, which is sad for a lot of reasons. You feel for those people, especially if they're a family, friend, or acquaintance. We had this happen to my family this year. And it was a cousin, and we had to reach out for further help because collectively as a family, we could not help the individual, maintain those goals, and the bills were really racking up. We were lucky. Their story was basically a story of a child who had an illness and ultimately succumbed to that illness. But it really is what story wins. And that's not a situation that family wanted to be in. It's not a situation your clients want to be in. And as these gaps in coverage continue to grow, unfortunately, it's becoming more and more of the norm. So we talked about the high deductible healthcare plans a bit. Coming into 2019, 43%. So, 4 out of 10 people have high deductible healthcare, which basically is, that we use the term cost sharing, but basically people are, have the brunt of their healthcare coverage on them. And so depending on what that deductible is, $5,000, $10,000, $2,500, that's the low end for just things like doctor's office visits or, a trip to the ER if, a kid breaks an ankle or twists an ankle and you have to, have help there. And most of the people, that's what that $100 in their HSA is for. It's when we get beyond those costs that things really become a problem. I think it'll be interesting to see the stat adjusted again this year going into open enrollment season. But this trend isn't going away. I don't think we're going to have more and more traditional HMOs and PPOs coming to the workplace anytime soon. I think high deductible health cares and these maximum out of pocket, these gaps are continuing to increase. So when we look at this a little bit different way, we look at what has been, the growth of workers' wages over the last 10 years. And you see that kind of being the bottom line. The employer, what's their share of these healthcare costs? And you see those continue to go up. But then ultimately that top line, what is the worker share of these healthcare costs? And something has to give here, right? Back in 2017, when the worker share of health costs increased 70%, and their salary, is increasing, nowhere near that. And how, something's got to give. These gaps continue to go up. We're paying more for our health care, and we're getting less. And so as an agent, as a financial advisor out in the field, again, this critical illness, sometimes would get a bad rap in the market because it could be seen like as a lottery ticket. I'm just going to make sure an extra replacement for life insurance will kind of throw a big lump sum at them, hopefully bring in some extra premium. But these are becoming more and more, table stakes types of products with these gaps rising. And I'm going to leave you with a quote from the CEO that, runs GoFundMe, Rob Solomon. They never expected their platform, to be focused on medical expenses, but it turned out to be a category of need in which so many people are struggling with that they're actually trying to help people with advice on how to further their stories and everything else, to be not, the 9 out of 10 that don't get funded, but ultimately how do you position yourself if you're truly in need? So that's where we're seeing the positioning and the real need for critical illness, not only for 2019, but beyond. We see this gap continue to rise. And so we looked at how can we restructure some of our marketing pieces, but more importantly, how can we restructure our product as this gap widens as well. So I'm going to hand it off to Ryan Hansen here to get into that with you.
I appreciate it, Scott. That's a lot of really good information, and I'm glad I got a chance to hear it. And I'm also really appreciative of the opportunity to spend a few minutes with all of you here on the phone today to touch on some of the highlights for Assurity's new critical illness insurance product. The new product launched June 1st. It's currently approved in 26 states, but we're adding more all the time. When we redesigned the product, we had two main objectives. We wanted to simplify things, and we wanted to enhance the product. We simplified the product by taking our previous two products, one of which was fully underwritten and one of which was simplified issue, and we combined them into one product. We think by doing so, we've made it easier to understand and easier to sell. Eligibility for simplified issue is straightforward, and it's determined by the desired benefit amount. For customers who want $75,000 or less, they're eligible for simplified issue, and for customers who want over $75,000, the option available to them is fully underwritten. We think this helps makes it easier for more people to get more coverage. The other objective when we redesigned it was to enhance the product. We wanted to give you a stronger story to sell, and we did that by adding several new features and riders. I want to touch on a few of the highlights here for you. The first one is an increased issue age. We now go up to age 70. This is really, really important for our distributors who are working in the Medicare supplement space. We also added 5 new riders, which we think gives you and your customers more flexibility to tailor coverage to fit their specific needs. We also enhanced the ROP part of Assurity's critical illness product. Before, it wasn't available on both products, but with the new product, all customers get a return of premium at death if it's caused by something other than a covered condition. And as Scott alluded to earlier, with sometimes the perception of critical illness being something like a lottery ticket, we think that's a really important enhancement because it guarantees your customers get some sort of benefit out of the product, even if they don't die from one of the covered conditions. Speaking of covered conditions, that's another one of the most significant enhancements we've made to the product. We changed the way it pays out, and let's take a closer look at that. So with Assurity's previous product, we covered 3 categories of conditions with a maximum of 1 payout on each, which meant that the policy could pay out a maximum of 3 times. The new base product has 11 covered conditions with no categories, and benefits are payable on up to all 11 as long as the illnesses are separated by at least 6 months. So what that means to the customer is that they could receive a benefit from their critical illness policy as many as 11 times versus 3 before. So let's take a look at one example here. Let's say you have a customer who has an Assurity critical illness benefit product with a $50,000 benefit. They're diagnosed with cancer, they receive their benefit of $50,000. 2 years goes by and they unfortunately suffer a heart attack. They get another benefit payout of $50,000. 10 years more passes by and they suffer a stroke. They receive a benefit payment of $50,000. And then 5 years after that, they're diagnosed with advanced Alzheimer's disease and receive another $50,000 benefit payout. And that's just with the base policy. We can expand coverage to additional covered conditions with any one of the number of various riders we have available. So speaking of riders, the new product has 10 available riders, including 5 new riders, all in the spirit of giving you choices when tailoring the policy to fit your customer's needs. So I want to dig deeper on each of the 5 new riders here for a moment. The first new rider, additional critical illness rider, it adds coverage for 6 additional conditions, including advanced ALS, advanced Parkinson's disease, loss of sight, loss of hearing, benign brain tumor, or severe burns. Another new rider for the new Assurity policy here is a critical accident rider. This rider covers certain accidents that may result in a hospital stay. To trigger benefits, the hospital stay has to be for 20 or more hours and has to be prescribed by a physician and caused by a covered accident within the previous 45 days. Another really interesting rider is the increasing benefit rider. This rider does exactly what it sounds like it does. It increases the benefit amount for the policy by 5% on each policy anniversary and does so for each of the first 10 years. This is a really, really great option for customers who are concerned, understandably, about how quickly medical costs are rising. Another really interesting rider is the loss of independent living rider. This rider pays a 25% benefit, pays 25% of the benefit amount if the insured permanently becomes unable to perform 2 or more activities of daily living. The last new rider I wanted to highlight for you all is the reoccurrence rider. So this rider pays a lump sum benefit if the insured receives a second diagnosis of the same critical illness for which a benefit was previously paid. So it gives them additional coverage if they're concerned about reoccurrence of certain covered conditions. We're really, really excited about the new simplified underwriting process for the new product as well. We think it's a lot easier and a lot faster, and we hope that means that you'll be able to sell more of it. For cases 75,000 and below, this simplified underwriting process means we generally won't need a medical exam, blood, urine, or EKG. It also means just 7 health questions for things like heart disease, stroke, cancer, etc., and just 1 family history question as well. And for your cases submitted via e-apps, customers may even get an instant decision before your appointment is over. They'll learn yay, nay, or potentially refer to underwriting for additional review. Our thought process on this is simple. We think the more quickly we can deliver on your customer's initial interest, the more cases we're going to place together. So we're really excited about this process and can't wait for you to try it out. So that's a quick overview of the product. Now let's take a look at how it works for real people with a couple of examples. First up here is Brian. He's 42 years old. He has a wife, he has a daughter, and he feels really good about his family's financial security. They save for retirement and own life insurance, but he's seen stuff on Facebook about people needing to raise money when a critical illness strikes, which has him feeling concerned about how quickly his family's financial plan could unravel if he were to get sick. So he talks to his rep, and his rep tells him about critical illness coverage, and Brian decides to buy an Assurity policy. He buys a policy with a $75,000 lump sum benefit. Because he's applying for $75,000, he qualifies for simplified underwriting and receives his policy within a few days. Brian gets the peace of mind he's looking for, and he does it for about $85 a month. Next up's Laura. She's a stay-at-home parent with 2 kids. Just because she doesn't actively earn an income doesn't mean she'd be easy to replace if she got sick. Who would watch and take care of her kids? Who will make sure they're fed and wearing clean clothes? Will her husband have to take time off of work to help her? Money's been a little tighter since she decided to stay at home to raise the kids. If her husband would need to take that time off work, how will they be able to pay their bills? How are they going to be able to come up with the money to cover their large deductible from their health care plan? For just over $17 a month, the couple can buy Lauren a critical illness insurance policy with a $25,000 lump sum benefit. If Lauren suffered a covered critical illness, they'd have a financial cushion, and the couple could use it to help cover their deductible, medical bills, daycare, and other everyday expenses. So that's a quick overview of Assurity's new critical illness plan, as well as a couple examples. I'm going to turn it back over to Scott so he can share some more about some of the sales tools him and his team have developed for you.
Thanks, Ryan. That was a great overview. And I think, one of the things I've really appreciated about this product is, the sales ideas we just went over kind of talk to that need on the GoFundMe side, right? They're talking about middle Americans who don't necessarily have that $1,000 in their emergency fund or $10,000 in their emergency fund to cover these things. But the flexibility of our plan, right, if it's $75,000 and under, it's a very straightforward path. And for those of you who are listening, who are kind of in that open enrollment space or know what fourth quarter really truly means, we're going to make this we're not going to belabor anything for you. We're really going to make sure that those apps zip through. For those of you who might just be dipping your toe in CI, or look at CI from maybe more as even a key person replacement, on the life insurance side, those amounts go up to $500,000, and for, business partners that are out there, if something would happen, we do have the flexibility in this product. Yes, it's a fully underwritten path, but I've been happy that we've been able to raise that because there is a need there as well that isn't the typical one we're showing here.
For sure.
Through kind of the healthcare plan aspect. So what we have now is, just some thoughts for you on, starting these conversations. We kind of touched upon it earlier, right? When, when was the last time you felt like you had, more plan options, or you're sure what your plan would actually pay? I think consumers are confused. I think every year, I've read a study that, the typical consumer takes about 5 minutes of research to do their enrollment, on a product at work. It's 5 minutes, and how important that is and how much money you're spending on it. I don't think there's really anything else you would be spending so much money on that you typically spend so little time really researching and understanding as it is your healthcare plan at work. And so, starting off with that question that's usually very relatable and relevant this time of year is a good one. How has your budget been handling these deductibles and healthcare costs? Then it's really getting into, if your spouse or if you knew somebody that's had one of these things, and making it relate to a life event that they, they're feeling right now or that they've had experience with. So I think starting down those paths are very relevant and easy paths for us to go down when we're trying to look at these sales. To go along with those conversation starters, we've developed all new materials with our new product that help people kind of go through these thought processes, or that you could have as a leave behind. Maybe you're selling one product, you want them to start thinking about this other product going into enrollment season, and then reach back out to them. So, through AssureLink or through your regional, if you're already contracted with us, reach out, ask us, what materials do you have? We've got new consumer brochures. We've got kind of these scenarios builders, on help covering costs and easing your financial worries. And ultimately, we've got quick videos out there that you can just send a link to somebody and get them to go down that thought process. So then when you come out and ask for that appointment, you have kind of the seed planted. Another piece that we've been proud of was we've been working pretty hard on, again, simplifying this process for you. For those of you who are really in enrollment season, looking at, this company's rate versus this one can be overwhelming. And keeping up on what, states are approved, or, do premiums go up and down? These are flat premium products. And, once somebody signs up, they can feel good that their premiums are going to stay the same year after year. But where their premium starts, right, is just getting a quote. So going out to myquote.assurity.com and getting your own quote for CI. I personally own CI. I believe in the product. And I think one of the first things that I think most people do is go out and see what that quote would be for themselves. And so we welcome you to go out to that website. If anyone's interested, again, we can send out those links. But it's myquote.assurity.com. We've got all of our products out there, and you'll see critical illness and the new product being one of them. You can go out for the states that are approved right now, which, Ryan mentioned we got about 26 states and more to come. We've been working on filing and objections with, the major states, and we're seeing them roll in every day. But go out, get your own quote. You'll see that you can do full add-ons to any of the riders that Ryan mentioned. And we when we present a quote, we kind of do a good, better, best mode right now on this quote engine. So right now, your options, would be for $10,000, $25,000, or $50,000. And if you're somebody who's really in this market and really in this space, we will custom make these quote engines for different brokerages, and agency offices. We won't do it typically for an individual agent, but if you wanted to see your brand and logo on one of these quoters that you could send to a consumer in a link, and we can get those up and running really quickly. When I mean really quickly, like within a week of an approved request. And again, we're just trying to make things easier for you during enrollment season. Most people, we know critical illness isn't the first product they're selling. So if it's, the second, third, or fourth product they're selling, we know in order to get consideration, we want to make that really as easy as possible. Another thing to check out, all these marketing materials we have, whether you're reaching out to your regional or just go out to criticaloutlook.com. We have stored all these things outside of a login, so you're not wasting time trying to remember what that password is to the 20th carrier that you're having to deal with. Go out here, you'll see all those materials, and hopefully you'll keep a bookmark, because during this enrollment season, we're going to continue to add more things, hopefully to make your prospecting life a little bit easier. And the last shameless plug we'll have from a marketing standpoint is, we've been creating podcasts, things that when you're out on the road, you can kind of sit back, relax, and listen to. And we've got a really good one on critical illness. One of our colleagues that sells for us, one of our business partners that's out there, is Chet Marco. And Chet runs an agency out in Texas that's been doing a lot of CI business. So kind of getting tips from them, not listening to us, the folks, back in the carrier ivory tower, but those folks who are your peers out there who are, dealing with these subjects every day, go out and get a listen from one of your peers and getting more tips and advice on how to really get into this product. So that's what we had for you today. I really appreciate for those of you who stuck with us for this half hour. We really wish you the best here in the upcoming enrollment season. Know that at Assurity, we're here always to take your phone call. So whether it's reaching out to one of us who've been on this webinar, or ultimately to a regional to either help get you contracted or to help get you the right tools you need or your business process the right way, we'll always be here to help you. So don't be bashful. Feel free to reach out. And good luck out there. We'll take a look at the questions that we have and then probably wrap things up. But I do appreciate all of your time today, and definitely Ryan for joining me in doing this, because it is a very important product for our company. Looking at the questions, the first one I see, do premiums increase on this product? This is one of those things that's always better to buy when you're younger, even though people think, it won't happen to them the younger they are. But no, premiums do not increase with age on this product. They're locked in at time of approval. How do you find out state approvals or which states, is a question. Our AssureLink behind our login is where we have all of our state approvals. So if you're licensed or appointed with us, there's a map that we we keep updated as soon as we get a new state approved. And if you're somebody that isn't licensed and appointed with us and is interested, will this fit my need? You could reach out, via email, or we'll get you in touch with the regional to make sure, do we have a state approval in your backyard? And then the last question I'm seeing here that's active is, can we get slides to this webinar or a copy of the recording? We always post the recordings to our webinars, so that'll have those slides. And ultimately, the on-demand type of webinar, you can pass it off to your friends or whatever after this recording. It usually takes us about a week to get that out the door. We got a couple other questions coming in right now. Is California one of the states that's approved? Right now, California is not approved. I can tell you we had a meeting on that this week from a product development standpoint. I can tell you it's filed. I can tell you that we are currently working on, the changes that California was looking for. So I do think there is progress being made, but as of this webinar, we do not have the state of California approved. We do have our old product for critical illness approved in the state of California, so it's not like going into this enrollment season, you wouldn't have a product. The need would still be real. The flavor of the product would be a little different, but you could actively still sell a product in California with the surety. We're being asked, how was our CI product compared to others? I think most critical illness products are fairly similar in the approach, right? They're going to pay a lump sum based on covered conditions. Other companies might have a different list of covered conditions than us. But ultimately, those generally are very similar. So then what it really comes down to is process and then pre-existing conditions, right, and getting products placed. So the scenario would be, okay, I've got somebody that has cancer or, had that first treatment. They know they need CI or a type of coverage. Some other companies will just sell you cancer insurance or heart attack insurance, or, stroke typically isn't taken on by itself. But at Assurity, we don't look at it quite that way. What we would look at is, hey, I've got somebody who had cancer, but they really want heart attack coverage. If an app is submitted, we have the ability in our underwriting process, even on a simplified basis, to review that quickly and maybe carve out the pre-existing conditions. So it wouldn't be covered for that, but everything else would be covered. So that's a bit unique in how we handle that process, and ultimately for pre-existing conditions. Our waiting period for cancer, on this product would be 30 days, where some other people might be a little bit different depending on condition, but all other conditions other than cancer would be covered immediately from the time the app would be processed. So that can be a little bit different. And then price, right? We are very price competitive. We have very competitive commissions on this, so we feel good about how we stack up in the market, and I feel very good price-wise how we stack up in the market. And then how do you know what illnesses are covered? If you go out to that, criticaloutlook.com would probably want to be one of the better places just to see highlight sheet-wise are out there. You can download that right now, see what are the base things that are covered. And then Ryan also mentioned, we have a rider that extends that to a lot of other conditions. So you can, definitely cover a wider range, but that'd be, so just listing them out here today, that'd probably be your best bet, just to go out to criticaloutlook.com, take a look and see what, conditions are covered and if that makes sense for what you're looking at for your clients. Seeing if there's any other questions. I'm not seeing anything come in right now. Again, if there are questions after the fact, feel free to reach out, via email, as you're invited to this webinar, or if you already currently have a regional here at Assurity. We're really excited about this product. We're really excited about the sales we've already been seeing and how this product, on some of the carve-outs, the process, the higher face amounts, Ryan mentioned a real important part going up to age 70. You know, there's a lot of things we know you've been asking for quite some time that I feel really good that we've been able to fulfill with this new product, and we'll keep working really hard to get it approved in all 50 states. But thanks again for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you next time, and have a good day.
Thanks, everyone.